This is why we have all these life lessons that we want to experience. And the soul is so excited it gets to experience this because this is just a movie. This is not reality, right? Reality is our soul is everlasting. And that's why reincarnation exists, because the soul continues on. It's not just here for this time and that's it. Welcome to the Story of Spirit podcast, where practical spirituality meets real life. Hi, I'm your host, Sheetal Story. I'm a psychic medium, grief support counselor, professional astrologer, and a human design reader, and of course, a law of attraction master coach. With my unique blend of spiritual and practical tools, I am here to help you align with your soul-led purpose and ignite a life that sets your soul on fire. In this podcast, we are going to explore the principles of energy, astrology, spirituality, and psychology to help you heal your grief and create an aligned life and business from the inside out. Whether you are looking to deepen your intuition, understand your cosmic design, or transform your business, this podcast is for you. Join me each week for insightful discussions, practical tips, and inspiring stories that will guide you on your journey to living your very best life. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Sheetal Story or wherever you listen to this podcast. Let's dive in and start this transformative journey together. Welcome to the Story of Spirit podcast. A hot topic that keeps coming up in my communities, and it came up at the spirit messages we just had this last week, which was so good, is reincarnation. And reincarnation, your spirit's, your soul's evolution is what I named this episode today, that came straight from my heart, from my intuition, because it is such a profound topic. It's a topic that I grew up with in my culture. So I just do want to acknowledge that right off the get-go, that you might not believe in it. You might not have grown up with it. This might be a foreign topic to you, or you might have heard about it, but you're not really too sure. But there's been so much interest swirling that as I asked Spirit what the next topic is I should be talking about, and it was reincarnation. So today we are going to get into the mechanics, the depth of reincarnation. And, this is number one, what I've learned as it's part of my culture, but also documentaries and so many things that I have seen evidence of in the world, which I actually have a documented case of reincarnation that I'm going to talk to you about today, but also the mechanics of it in spirit. And that came up at the spirit messages this weekend, where someone asked, like, why, does that happen? Would my grandmother come back as my child, and those kinds of things. And it's really cool to understand it from a spirit perspective, from soul's perspective. In all the readings that I have done, I'm going to say probably up about around 1,000 at this point in time, maybe, in the 800, 900 realm. So in there has only been one case of reincarnation confirmed by spirit. And then they confirmed it as well with some evidence, which I'll talk about as well. So, and then in watching some of my mediumship colleagues or some mediums that I see on TV as well, it's come up only a few times. It doesn't happen very often. So I really want you to hear that. It's not everybody's reincarnating and your baby is your grandmother, or your dad. It's not that at all. And there's a reason for that. So first of all, simply, reincarnation is the belief that the soul returns in different lifetimes. And, culturally, it's very kind of believed in Hinduism in the East. We feel like the soul continues on past life. I think more so, Western religion believes that the soul is complete on one lifetime around, and it ascends to be with God, which is true, but not complete. We all ascend to be with God, if you will. They, step into pure consciousness, which is your soul without a body, and then you do come back again in another way. So it's really quite interesting. A great book to read on this that really changes lives and changes perspectives is Many Lives, Many Masters. A great book. I highly recommend it if you want to learn deeper of reincarnation and past lives. And it's a book written by a psychologist, a doctor of psychology who's Harvard trained and teaches, I believe, at Harvard as well. And his experience with regression and going back to helping a lady who has a lot of kind of fears that are unfounded. And as he regresses her back to the fear, the start of the fear, she's in another timeline, she's in another life. And she recounts things that there's no way she would know. It's not her intelligence level, which he's very candid about that. And after he regresses her and brings her back, there is the fear is gone, completely healed. So that's a wild story, and he does it multiple times with multiple fears. And then there's an in between when he's regressing her that she dies and she goes into spirit, and she has to sort of kind of do a review of what she learned and what she didn't, and then what her next lessons are going to be, and be reincarnated again. And the reincarnation is not linear. So it's not like, oh, you're born in the 50s and the next time you're going to be born in the 2000s. And then no, it can actually go back and forth. Time is only linear in this dimension, in the 3D. So we can only be in one place at one time. Time and space is fixed in the 3D. But when you go into higher dimensions, time and space is not fixed. So you can be in multiple places at once. That's why many of you can feel your loved ones in spirit at the same time, feel them like they're standing beside you, even though it was at the same time. And I had that from a number of clients where, like, I know my mom passed, I could feel her with me, but then my sister said she felt my mom with her too. Which one of us actually felt her? I was like, listen, competitors, this is not about being in one place at one time. That is only in this dimension. It is not in spirit realm. So keep that in mind, that it's time is not linear. You can be reborn into a past, right? Into the past or into a distant future. You can jump around, but it's not about the time. It's about the life lessons. It's about what you are coming here to learn. And when you think about the life lesson, what you're coming to learn, there is a very specific mix that has to happen to create that perfect formula. So think about your past, your family, family values, family traumas, right? Your skin color, your hair color, what your parents have went through, who they are when you're born, who you are when you're going through things, what happens as you're going through those stages of development. All of those things have to be perfect for the life lessons that you are wanting to experience in this lifetime. So you can't just be born anytime, and it's not about the birth time. It's really about the life lesson, right? Where are you going to be born in the world that you have this experience? Like I was saying to my girlfriend, that the fact that I'm born here in Edmonton as an East Indian woman, and to immigrant parents, I'm first generation Canadian, I'm being brought up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is very, there's a multicultural side to Edmonton too, which is kind of called the Millwoods area, and we live on the opposite end in the West End. So I've never really grown up inside the culture. I've always grown up outside my culture, but I've learned about my culture from different people. And even in being immersed in it, when I go back to India and Malaysia, I'm never really Indian enough for that. I stand out like a sore thumb. The way I walk, the way I talk, when people are staring, it's just in our culture that people stare at you a lot. My mom always say, they're staring because you're beautiful. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Like, they're staring because they're staring, right? I always used to think, I bet you they're staring because they're wondering if I'm related. And I'll just stare back and I'll say, can I help you? They won't say anything. They'll look away. I actually found joy in that. That's my Scorpio rising, y'all. I'm going to bring on the conflict. I'm not scared of conflict, but that is the culture. I don't fit in there, and then here I'm too brown to be Caucasian or to Canadian, so to speak. So I'm sort of in this in between, and yet I relate more to sort of the Western culture than I do my own culture at times. And it wasn't until I had children that I really wanted to instill my culture in them so that they could continue it on too. but it is different. It's the way that I experienced it. Like my dad and mom used to play Indian music in the car all the time, everywhere we went. And I'd have to like turn down the music when they dropped me off at school because I didn't want everyone to hear the Indian music blaring from my parents' car. Like we never got to really listen to top 40 music, whereas I was listening to someone tell the story of the music they listened to growing up, and it was blues, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like I grew up with Indian music. It's like, and sometimes my dad likes really emo music from India, so it's very emotional. So it's just interesting to have, my soul chose to be born during this time, to have this experience, to look like this, to have these cultural values, but also to be deeply spiritual. Like we are a deeply spiritual race of people. And then I learned all these other things in spirituality, and it's non denominational. Like, I truly believe in a non denominational spiritual connection. And I think all gods exist. We all see God in different ways. And, I call it spirit because that's what I believe in. And that's what I experience on a daily basis. So, whatever you experience, that's for you. This podcast is not going to try to convince you that something exists. It's just giving you information, and you get to decide what works for you and what doesn't. All right. So, the purpose of reincarnation is about growth. The soul grows through many facets. I was given the experience of understanding the soul as a multi-dimensional, think of it as like a 10,000 sided diamond. And every lifetime, you shine up one facet of that diamond, just one, right? You have many life lessons to learn. The soul wants to experience. And the reason why the soul wants to experience, because it can only grow through these experiences. Because in spirit, think about it, in that dimension that energy exists only as energy, as pure consciousness, there is no friction, as we are all one, right? If we are in pure energy, we can blend with each other and we can understand, oh, I know who you are and you know who I am. But it's not until we have the experiences of being separate from one another that we start to experience conflict. We experience separation. And that separation now creates identity. And the identity then creates, this is me and this is you. And that's the separation. So we must come into separation to then create friction. And this friction, these relationships, good or bad, all relationships are neutral, neither are good or bad, but all these relationships bring you awareness. And as you become aware, as you become more, I'm going to say, conscious, you become more aware of your triggers and your life lessons, you grow your consciousness. So you are elevating your awareness and you're growing your consciousness. And so this is how we grow consciousness on a collective. This is how we grow consciousness on a collective level. So this is why we reincarnate. This is why we have all these life lessons that we want to experience. And the soul is so excited it gets to experience this, because this is just a movie. This is not reality, right? Reality is our soul is everlasting. And that's why reincarnation exists, because the soul continues on. It's not just here for this time and that's it, right? Although many cultures and many religions believe that it is a one and done, which is fine. It's fine. But there's actually so much evidence that that is not true. So growth comes through soul's experience over lifetimes. And we come into incarnation with contracts with other people. We cannot grow if we don't have, laying on a beach in Hawaii, although that would be lovely. We have to come into connection with others to then experience the contrast, then to get clarity and healing. And these soul contracts, if they're not healed in this lifetime, we will continue to recreate them in other lifetimes. But they will be reasons for this. This is where I differ sometimes from people who talk about past lives or Akashic records. If you don't know what Akashic records are, Akashic records is they call it the record keeping of every lifetime you've ever lived. Think of it as like multitudes of filing cabinets that have a file on your name that has all your lifetimes in it and all the life lessons you've experienced and your soul family and who you've experienced it with, what's due, what's not due, what's owed, what's not owed. And it's all in these record files. But the reasons why you're not allowed to know them, because you're coming into this lifetime to live this lifetime. If you are aware of your past lives, of your experiences, of your personas, of who you killed and who you were killed by, we were all killed and we all killed somebody. Like, that is our past, right? That was part of our soul contract, and it is perfect and it's complete, right? We don't have to go back and hash that out and be like, oh my God, I was a bad person. No, that was part of everything that happened in that lifetime, and we don't need to go back and cast judgment on it from this lifetime. This lifetime does not give you perspective on that lifetime. You were a different person, you were from a different family, beliefs, time. There was times in history where beheading people was like normal, or taking kids away from indigenous families and putting them in schools and shaping their head and trying to, snuff out their culture. That was acceptable. Like, in this mindset, I'm like, who allowed that? Who thought that was okay? But in that lifetime, I would have been like, yeah, let's do that. It makes no sense to us in this lifetime because it's not our culture today, and we know better. In that time, it was prevailing. So we cannot go back and judge past lifetimes based on present ideation, knowledge, wisdom, truth. Okay. Really important to hear that. So karmic patterns and unfinished life lessons continue on in other lifetimes, not always consecutively. You may be like, okay, I'm going to leave that life lesson for now and I'm going to go to this life lesson instead. So every life has a life lesson, multiple life lessons that you are working on with multiple people at any given moment, right? Think of multiple assignments in play all the time. Every relationship you have, either you're a helper or you're a life lesson, or you might be even both. That's okay. And it's about moving through them with conscious awareness and saying, what do I need to complete to bring this relationship to neutral? So that's a whole thing on soul contracts, which I'm definitely going to do a whole episode on. I also want to do a soul contracts class so you can understand the contracts in play in your life and also heal them so that you don't recreate them over and over and over again and have to spend multiple lifetimes understanding these contracts. Sometimes it takes lifetimes, y'all, because they are deep and dynamic. And that is okay. That's why we have multiple lifetimes. You don't have to get it all right in this lifetime. It's okay. And there's no right or wrong. It's just an experience, right? But it's coming to neutrality. It's coming to understanding of what this is here to teach me. So these are opportunities to expand love, wisdom, and service. These are these lifetimes. This is why we come here to experience. And you might experience some signs that you've lived before. So sometimes deja vu or deep soul recognition with people and places, like I've been here before. I 100% knew I lived in London, and I just visited London last year. It was fantastic, and I really felt so viscerally I did not want to see the Tower of London. I felt like I had died there many, many times. And I literally had an aversion when I see the Tower of London and I saw it. I was like, nope, I'm good. I do not need to go there. And my beautiful friend was like, are you sure? It's really important. It's one of the major things we haven't seen. And I'm like, I'm good. I feel like I remember it. I don't really need to be there. I also know that I've had past lives in France. I feel very, very strongly about a castle, and I haven't been to France. I want to go. I definitely know I'll know it when I see the castle that I died at, So very, very interesting. You get these kind of feelings for places that you're just like, oh, even I felt that in New York as well. I 100% feel like I came over on a boat in New York at some point in time in history, a very dirty time, a very hard time. So you kind of sometimes will have pulls to places and just kind of have these deja vu or soul recognition of people or places. We so have soul recognition of people. These are called soul families. And our soul families have, you feel like you've known them forever, right? You just have such a deep connection to people that you just know. I've met many people where I have a soul connection to. And you might have some like unexplained talents or phobias. I 100% know that I've been a psychic and a medium and a way to channel in past lifetimes. It's come up many, many times. I've been persecuted. I've been 100% burned at the stake. I have like a visceral, like, I want to fight somebody when we start talking about witches being burned at the stake. I know, I definitely was. Many of my friends were as well. And you might have that or you might not. It's really, you might be neutral on it, and that's fine. It's all just information. And kind of unfounded phobias, like my husband has a phobia of sharks, right? But he saw Jaws at a very young age. So that makes sense to me, right? But if you have this feeling of like being scared of being burned alive or buried alive, like that's even strange, like you're like, where did that come from? Where is that? Or scared of small spaces, but when were you ever experienced that? My husband has a very big fear of heights. I feel like he fell to his death for sure on something in his past life. There's no anything in this lifetime that would make sense for why that is today. And strong pulls to certain periods of time, cultures, and practices. You can definitely have this feeling of like being living in a time that feels very, pulling to you. Like I have this weird experience with Buddy Holly's music that makes zero sense to this East Indian girl who likes top 40 and heavy metal music. Buddy Holly music and Buddy Holly himself. I just have this feeling of like a real care and kindness for him. So either I was like a huge groupie or I might have been a relative or something like that of that time frame. So interesting, is that true? Does it really happen? Who cares? I don't really care. I just this noticed this feeling when I hear his music about something, some sadness. I might have been alive at that time and been a huge, fan of his. Yeah, it just brought something up in me. Something that I really love are examples of past life reincarnation stories that are like you cannot undeniable. And you can Google these and see back in time. Like there's lots of evidence of like soldiers, people who were born again and had like understandings of who they were as a soldier or as a pilot. Or my favorite one is a lady by the name of Dorothy Eady, who was a British woman born in 1904, who after a childhood accident she fell down the stairs and bumped her head and started recalling the past as an Egyptian princess in the temple of Seti. And in the Seti temple, I almost said that Indian. And her name then she started to go by was Om Seti. And Om Seti had very vivid memories of temples, rituals, and intimate knowledge of ancient Egyptian customs and uncanny accuracy about archaeological sites. Her insights were later validated by Egyptologists who even predicting the details that had not yet been discovered. So they actually brought her into a part of the pyramid that had been uncovered, and she came in and read the hieroglyphics, having zero training on hieroglyphics, stuff that they didn't know. She read the hieroglyphics and then she predicted the rest of the temple to the degree that she could draw it out. And when they uncovered the rest of the temple, she was indeed correct. So she knew the exact layout and could read the language of the ancient Egyptians. So Om Seti's life story is often cited as one of the most compelling modern cases of reincarnation. You can Google her, you can see her. I watched a documentary on her and it blew my mind. So, how reincarnation really shapes your life is the lessons your soul might be revisiting. Relationships or as soul contracts can continue to come back in different bodies and different, people, and the possibility of bringing gifts and wisdom in from other lifetimes. And we don't choose to incarnate if all of our loved ones are still here on this planet, right? So, when you take your last breath, all of the relationships and connections you have in this lifetime, you're now supporting them in spirit. And if you had unfinished life lessons, you can help people in this on still in the physical world to heal and to move up higher in vibration for you, because they're releasing that bond, that soul contract, so that you can move higher. So you're going to want to see your children graduate. You're going to want to see your children get married. You want to see your grandchildren graduate. You're not going to want to reincarnate somewhere else. But even if you did reincarnate, and remember, we talked about high self, it's that tether up into the energy field. That high self is always in play. So even if you do reincarnate and then you do have your grandkids from this lifetime wanting to connect with Nana, there's your high self is going to still come forward and be there for them, because that energy, that consciousness is always connected to spirit. We have a high self. We call it sort of the star crown chakra. It's the one that's connected up into spirit and to the energy field of all that is. So reincarnation isn't the be all and end all for all spirits. We want to continue to support from the other side. It's very rare that someone will choose to come back in this lifetime in the body of a baby coming in. Remember, all the things have to be exactly perfect for this baby to be reincarnated now in this lifetime. Like you will be in probably another lifetime or another family, another constellation of people. You might even be on another planet, right? There's life on this in other planets, not just on Earth. So you could have life experiences on another planet that has different laws and different experiences and different government and policies and humanity. So it's not just Earth. I really want you to open your awareness that your life lessons can be so much more than just who you love, who you hate, and what your job is. There's so much more to your experience. So reincarnation isn't something that's, obviously taken lightly. It's not very common. I did have one experience where spirit showed me that this grandmother was reincarnated as the baby, and the baby had just been born into the family. The baby had the same birthmark as the grandmother, exact same. And it also started to exhibit mannerisms. And as it started speaking, it started to speak as the grandmother in terms of like her intonation, but also some of the words that she would use that no one else really used, with this baby. No one else used. So it was just wild as you start to think about how this could be. That's they affirmed that when I said, oh, and I feel like she's got mannerisms. So it's been really wild, to watch this unfold. It's not very common. So reincarnation is a tool of self-understanding and healing. Is a time to reflect on your own life path and what feels familiar and not, and start to just kind of notice and start to Google some things. I felt like I was a Vestal Virgin, it's called. It came up in a reincarnation meditation. And as I looked into the last Vestal Virgins, everything I saw in my experience, I've never known about that. I didn't know what it was. I looked into it and I 100% lived that entire life as one of the last ones. We were killed off for knowledge because Caesar wanted to come in and take over that knowledge, and he didn't want women to have any part of the knowledge piece. So many of my lifetimes were about women's knowledge being taken by men, or women's power being taken by men. And I think that's interesting that I'm here to usher in the divine feminine at this time in history. So pay attention to those little things in you. Notice what, that feels like for you. If you have any questions you want me to explore on the podcast, please feel free to send me an email or DM me on social media. I love your questions. They inspire me to make podcasts like this. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Story of Spirit podcast. I hope you have found inspiration, support, and practical insights to help you align with your soul-led purpose and live a life that sets your soul on fire. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us to reach more listeners and continues to provide valuable content. I sincerely appreciate every share, and I know it is how most people find me. It is because caring people like you have shared me with them at the right and perfect time. For more resources, insights, and to connect with our community, please visit us at www.sheetalstory.com and follow us on Instagram at sheetalstory. Remember, your journey to a more aligned and vibrant life is just the beginning, and I am here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, stay aligned, stay inspired, and keep shining your beautiful light. This is Sheetal Story, signing off from the Story of Spirit podcast. Here's the legalese that's required by our lawyers. This podcast and the YouTube channel represents the opinions of Sheetal Story and her guests to the show. The content should not be taken as medical, psychological, or financial advice. This series is informational and entertainment purposes only. Because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional, your mental health dream team, your financial advisor, or anyone else that's an expert in the field in where you are thinking of making big choices in your life.